Hello, and welcome to Gargoyle's Quest Any Percent. 3, 2, 1, let's go! So Gargoyle's Quest is a 2D platformer that was originally released on the Game Boy. We are currently playing the Switch version. And it was a fairly early Game Boy game too. It was advertised as one of the first games with 360-degree movement. So a 2D platformer where the screen could scroll up, down, left, right, any direction. Which was pretty impressive at the time. We kind of take it for granted these days. It did it even before Mario did. And now you can really see the core mechanics of Gargoyle's Quest at work. The big thing is the hover gauge in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. That effectively determines how long you can stop your descent and just sort of hover in air here. Over the course of the game, that wing strength is going to be getting upgraded, as well as our jump strength, damage, as well as getting a pretty wide variety of attacks that do some pretty interesting things over the course of the game. Taking a damage boost there, so we can just clip through that enemy. And jumping up here to force that gargoyle to fall. Grabbing the health before the boss and getting this started. Gargoyle's Quest is one of those games where as soon as the shot disappears, you're able to fire another one. And that allows us to damage boost into this boss and take it out pretty quick. This boss has pretty low health, fortunately, so it's not too bad to kill it within that window. Here we've got the overworld of Gargoyle's Quest, which kind of connects levels together. Sometimes you're going to have random encounters on these squares, and sometimes you're going to have forced encounters. These forced encounters you have to win, but the random encounters sort of just go away, like your traditional RPG random encounters. And the reason why I bring that up is forced encounters we have to get through. But these random encounters, if you have the resources, you want to take a death. And here you can see we get a nice big victory fanfare, we get a reward text box, we get another sort of collection jingle. But if we die, those two jingles are gone, you just fade to white out of the level and you get a much faster text box. So if you have the resources, generally speaking, you're going to want to take the death. Here we're talking with Jark, who's going to give us our first sort of quest of the game. He's missing his gremlin stick. And as compensation, he's giving us our first nail upgrade, which is a jump upgrade. This game really likes for you to sort of be gated by the next level and having you ask around or discover an upgrade. We wouldn't be able to make that jump without the jump upgrade, at least in a casual sense. It's totally possible to make that jump, and in fact, the TAS chooses to forego the first jump upgrade in order to do the first 2 levels without a jump upgrade. But for the human routes, that's not very efficient. Here we've got another forced encounter. And we're just going to damage boost, slip right behind them, and we're good. Oh, what do we got this time? Another set of shield guys, so gonna do the exact same thing. And there we go. Ta-da! We're getting a currency from all these, but that currency is only used for getting level ups, so not really much point in the speedrun. And here we are, the second dungeon, the Monster Tower. This one's pretty precise. Unlike the first level, and most of the levels after this, there's no health upgrades. And since we still only have 2 health, we have to be very careful in this level. The only health restore we even have as an option is taking a death at the checkpoint to get all of our health back. So once we're past the checkpoint, it's definitely past a point of no return. Some short hops up here, and we're already at the checkpoint. Which there isn't really much fanfare for checkpoints, you kind of just have to know where they are. So from here on out, we got to be very careful. There we go. And we're going to need that health in order to do a damage boost strategy on this boss. So this boss is split up into 4 parts. This one we're just going to shoot and fly towards. Here's where our damage boost is. Next we're going to fire one in the air, and then hover towards it. Gotta wait for that shot to deploy. And there we go, that's the boss. Very interesting boss for this game. It's the only one like it that's split into multiple parts. And there we go, we've acquired Jark's Gremlin Stick. And now we can carry on. Now from here we're going to want to make sure to be at 0 lives, so if any encounters pop up, whoops, we're absolutely going to want to take them. And unfortunately, good RNG is bad RNG in this case, because we didn't take any deaths on the way to the monster tower, and we're going to want to be at 0 lives so that we can use a death warp after we talk to Jark again. So we're going to want to get a couple random encounters, ideally, but worst case scenario, when we come back into this level, we can just instantly die on that lava, and it pretty much breaks even for the death warp if we happen to not get any random encounters on the way back. And we want to use the Gremlin Stick on Jark here. And he pretty much thanks us, warns us that the king is on his way, or king is in danger, and we're going to need to go to the castle to save them. Wow, no random encounters. That's both really lucky and really unlucky here. So we're going to take the deaths. We had 1 from the start of the game, but we also got 1 extra life from beating the monster tower. And that's going to warp us back to here. Now this character would have been blocking us before we helped Jark. They're going to give us an armor upgrade, which is actually pretty big at this point. The difference between 2 damage, 2 health, and 3 health is pretty big. It allows us to... It increases the number of things we can damage boost on pretty dramatically, and changes our available options for random encounters. Another thing that we got from the monster tower, which I really haven't brought up yet because we haven't had any encounters to swap to it, is the block breaker, which does exactly what you think. It breaks certain blocks. But also, it increases our DPS by having 2 projectiles on screen at once. Here we're going to inspect this tree, which a bunch of NPCs hint us towards, to get the Wings of the Falcon, which is our first wing upgrade. For a world record route, we would actually skip that wing upgrade and do a trick referred to as bridge skip. But for this commentary run, we're not going to be worrying about bridge skip. It does save a significant chunk of time. partially because it, one, saves some overworld movement, so you don't have to worry about going to the right to get the falcon, and anytime you can reduce the overworld movement, that reduces your chance of random encounters, so that's great. But it also prevents you from getting into this encounter here. If you don't have the wings, he just lets you pass. There we go. It's very tight. He just lets you pass and says, oh, you can't cross with those weak wings. If you do have the wings of the falcon, you're forced into that encounter, which is a pretty high health encounter, so takes a long time. And says, I'll never give you a chance to use those wings. So here we've got another gear check. And with the wing upgrade, it's pretty straightforward, just need to flutter a little bit. Flutter being sort of pause, where you don't want to just hold your wing strength in this game. The most efficient way to flutter, if you will, is to hover for a certain amount of frames and then fall for a certain amount of frames. And you're able to very efficiently use your wing gauge strategically falling for an extended distance. World Record does that bridge with only one upgrade, just the jump upgrade. The TAS does it with no jump upgrades, which is absolutely insane. Unfortunately, it's not possible to do a TAS perfect bridge skip as far as I'm aware, but I'd love to see someone pull it off. Here we're going into the castle level, and we're seeing a few new things right out of the gate. Those red rectangles are actually traps. Usually they would be invisible, but on the Game Boy Color, which is the current preview we're playing with, or current color scheme we're playing with, excuse me, they show up as red. If you're playing with the Game Boy Pocket or original Game Boy, it would blend into the environment. And we also had some brick breakable blocks as well. And gotta be careful for that guy. You can see some more of the brick breakable blocks down there, but we're going to avoid them right now. We'll be getting some more here in a second. There's also wind that's blowing to the left. You can see the grass sort of rustling as an indicator, so my forward momentum is being significantly halted right now. And now you can see the wind shut off. Here's another boss, just need to position to make sure we don't get shot by their projectiles. Want to make sure they spawn here. And pretty easy setup to mash and murder away. And once again, we need to make sure to use the item we got from Jark on the King of the Realm here. And he's going to ask us if we want to help restore the realm. And we can say yes here. And funny enough, in Japanese, you have to say yes here. If you say no, it locks you into a text loop. But something I discovered with a friend of mine, if you say no, only on English, if you say no, it doesn't actually loop that dialogue. And you're able to continue past this point without getting the jump upgrade and wing upgrade that he normally gives you. Here's another short overworld section, and we're heading over to the Desert Pit, which is another really interesting level. A lot of the levels in this game have sort of a horizontal approach. The Monster Tower had a very vertical going up approach, you know, climbing a tower. And as you might think from the name, the Desert Pit, we are going to be dropping straight down. And it's one of my favorite levels in the game. Now there's some important NPCs we need to talk to in this town, but not yet. We're just going to enter and leave. A lot of random encounters in this stretch, it seems. Fortunately, we have enough armor right now to deal with them. And here, you can kind of hear that scratching noise. That's actually wind forcing us to move in a particular direction. So you actually have a very strict... oh, that's unfortunate. But we've got a life, it's fine. And here we are. Time for the desert pit. So we're going to want to sort of follow this little trail in the center and be very careful with our wind gauge to make it all the way down. And we're already at the checkpoint. So pretty tense little drop there that I've always really liked in this game. Gonna jump up and over this guy. Another bit of threading the needle here. Fortunately, we've got plenty of wing strength to just avoid most of the obstacles here. Got some more brick break blocks. Get our wing strength back. Be careful for this winged potato. And we're on to the next boss. So similar to the first boss, we're going to be using iframes here. And we have one iframe cycle in order to kill this boss. But this boss has significantly more health. So the time frame is actually pretty tight. There's not much wiggle room and you've got to mash pretty fast. But fortunately, we were able to get there. And for our efforts, we got the Candle of Darkness, which is what we were looking for, as well as the Claw weapon. So similar to the Block Breaker, the Claw is another weapon which we can use against environmental hazards and things. But the Claw is going to allow us sort of to mitigate sideways spikes and be able to climb on them. It also does double damage, which is really nice. Our damage output is very high right now. Not as high as it gets, but it's still pretty high. And now we need to talk to this guy, and they're going to tell us about the character we're approaching. Majorita, I think. Or Majora, as I like to call them. And they're going to give us a nice big backstory dump. But first, a little bit of an overworld trend. Oh, this is a very unfortunate boss to get. Though, I guess they they die way faster than I thought with the Claw. I don't usually fight those guys with the Claw. Usually it's in the previous stage with the Block Break, but yeah, they die pretty fast, actually. So that's not too bad at all. Another one of these guys. Again, pretty similar techniques. You want to make sure to not die to them. The chariots, with 4 health, it's not as bad. The chariots do 2 damage, the spikes do 1. When we took the death earlier, I was trying to take the damage off the spikes, but I ended up taking the damage on the chariots instead. Here we can see just how much stronger the Claw is compared to the Brick Break, since this is the exact same encounter we got before the bridge. I believe it's twice as much damage if I remember correctly, but I'm not 100% on that. Again, another very quick encounter. We can kill these guys. We can kill that first one before they even manage to shoot a projectile. And we're out. So pretty light on encounters in the first half, but pretty heavy on encounters in the second half. Fortunately, the duration of the encounters is a lot shorter in the second half, because we've got a lot more power and a lot more utility in terms of damage boosting, killing things, able to jump to get projectiles off screen. So a lot more power than we would otherwise. Right, here is that big plot dump I was talking about. That is not what I meant to do. There we go. Uses the second option. So what Majora is telling us here is that the evil king who is attacking our realm right now has been here before, and they were defeated by a red gargoyle, and we are also a red gargoyle, and we are the last descendant of these gargoyles that have previously defended the realm, and the eternal blaze that we've been chasing this entire time was in fact inside us the whole time, / was us the whole time. Which is actually hinted at pretty well if you're paying attention to the story and you're talking to the NPCs. There's this whole thing about the red blaze being an object, and then maybe it's a gargoyle, and then you find out it's us. Now here we're able to take this death and get some more lives, because we actually just passed another overworld checkpoint. So we can take this game over and we'll spawn right here. So that's anything in this little quadrant is a nice free death that we can do to save time. Here we're got plenty of wing strength to fly over this little route. Want to make sure to be careful for that guy dropping there. And we can also damage boost off of this fire. Make sure everyone's dead. And move on. It's actually possible to do this stage with no wing strength upgrades and only one jump upgrade. But it's incredibly precise. Now this section of random encounters is interesting because this is one of the few places in the game where you can actually get the first boss as a random encounter in this little stretch. It's one of the worst bosses you can get too, because you can only damage it with the first weapon and it takes so long. Here's another little transitional section. And we can get better view of the claw here. So as you can see, we're using it to sort of nullify the damage we'd be taking from certain spikes. Great for climbing this last little bit. And now we're seeking out the character that we've been looking for this whole time, Reshafel. And this level is pretty tough. It's not too bad with the resources we've got now, but it fortunately has plenty of health. But ideally, we won't need to use any of it. Gonna damage boost on this spike, so we take 1 damage falling straight down instead of 2. And a nice free heart here for us. We want to wait for that for that little spike dude to be on screen without the other one, so we can just slide right by. Another great showcase of the spikes, the claw here. Fly right over those spikes, take damage to get through this dude, and we're good. Want to kill this dude, make sure he doesn't get in the way. Last little bit of brick block. And the important thing to realize for this boss coming up is they actually can't be damaged by the claw. So we want to stay on the brick break here. And then get the shot off screen, hover in place, and bada boom, we got Rushafell. And he's going to reward us with the Eternal Candle. And now we're going to be our strongest possible selves. We're going to have infinite wing strength. We're going to be able to jump super high. And we also have the special Dark Fire attack, which is our highest damaging attack. Unfortunately, we're really only going to be using it on one enemy, and that enemy is the final boss. And since we have infinite wing strength, we can actually do something kind of cheeky here. We're able to fly under the stage, which I really like doing, especially when doing commentary or marathons or something. There we go. Not too bad. It's a little riskier going under, but I think it looks cooler. We're also able to fly over the stage with our absurd jump strength right now. There's usually a lot of enemies that spawn here and try to be a huge hassle, but for the most part, we just avoid them. And here we are, final stage. Now, a lot of this is going to be, a lot of this is intended to be swapping back and forth between claw and brick break and maneuvering through this space. Ideally, we are not going to do a lot of that. There's one more swap, I believe, coming up, and then we are able to use damage boosts and shenanigans in order to avoid all of the remaining swaps. Playing it a little safer here. So this, ideally, this will be our last ability swap. So here we're going to damage boost so we can jump on that fire and make our way up here. Make sure the fly is in our way and get around. Then we're going to drop down here so we're shooting less blocks. Again, damage boost on the spikes so we can jump up here instead of using a claw. More brick break. And up. Fortunately, that lines up perfectly so you don't have to worry about hitting the spikes. Same here in the fire. Here you can just straight up jump up there. And one more damage boost on the spikes, and we're free. Just need to make sure not to die to that dude, and voila, we're on the final boss. Now in the any percent route, this is the only place where you need to say no. If you say yes on that boss, you will do the fight with no power. Fortunately, you're able to redo it pretty easily, but... and it's quite silly. But, just need to do a little bit of lineup, swap to our strongest ability, and bada boom! Boss is dead. Pretty anticlimactic of a final boss, but it's fine. And time will be... once we're going to kill this guy, or once he gets his final bit of dialogue, we're going to talk to the king, and then time is going to be on a fade to white. And there we go, that's time. We did it, we saved the realm. The last little bit of dialogue there actually ties this game into Ghosts and Goblins, where the king says, oh, by the way, there's this new realm called the Human Realm. If you can take it over, it's yours. And some of the music. And I didn't really mention it at the beginning, but this is a side story, Firebrand being that first gargoyle that attacks Arthur at the beginning of Ghosts and Goblins. But, yeah, here we go. Now Firebrand has his own thing. Gargoyle's Quest 2 is a prequel that talks about the first Firebrand, and then you also have Demon's Crest, which is the sequel to this on the Super Nintendo. But thank you for joining me. This has been Gargoyle's Quest Any%, and see you again soon.